talking about what AI means for the software developer. I am a software developer, so this is mostly what AI means to me, to be honest. So all of this talk is totally biased, totally subjective, and we'll see if you like it or not. So I am head of development in Sourcing Macedonia. I've been coding professionally for 2 millennia now. I love programming still. I love programmers. I'm mostly working with JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, and memes. So we're going to be talking about technology, basically. One thing about technology is how we, as a humans, feel about technology. So if you have small children, you might know that they think that a smartphone is way more simple than a spoon. They learned how to use a smartphone when they were 2. They learned how to use a spoon when they were 4, which means that smartphones are normal. Smartphones are everyday things. It doesn't matter that this thing has a lot of what we call technology inside. But they don't feel that way. Because anything invented before you were born or before you were 5 years old or something like that is just like how the world is. It's not something new, it's not something revolutionary, it's just something that exists. What we usually call technology is what we've seen develop. And then we got to be 35 or more or 40 plus, and then it starts becoming, that's the devil's work, that's not natural. So I'm 40 plus, definitely. And it seems like a lot of these things are not the natural state of things. This is weird, this is scary, this is gonna destroy everything we know. But I kind of try to actively fight against it, mostly by looking into some history. But let's just tell you a story, let Grandpa Simpson tell you. So I'm gonna say a quote. Let's talk about a hypothetical technology. This is a quote from the chief designer of the technology, and it says, "It's the current aim to replace as far as possible the human brain by a computer." What will we achieve with that hypothetical technology? A 50 times increase in developer productivity. And some of the explicit design goals are, it should use English as much as possible. It should be easy to use. It doesn't need to be as powerful as possible. It should be easy to train people using it. It should be fast to train people using it. It shouldn't use mathematical symbols or those weird characters at all. Does such technology exist? What do you think? Can it exist? Any opinions? Yeah. We're gonna get some maybes, we're gonna get a whole lot of no's. Yeah. What is it then? No. I'm talking actually about a very specific technology that exists, that got made and actually delivered on all of these promises. That technology is the COBOL compiler. Something that we don't really think about as a revolutionary, because that's older than all of us. That's even older than me. But this is a thing that happened in the 50s. And it did deliver on all of those things. It did speed up the development time. It was looking as English, because if you compare this to any machine language at the time, this is readable. Even now we can determine that this is something that does some reports or something like that. Yeah, and that's the chief designer, that's Grace Hopper. So there was such a technology once upon a time. And if you're old enough, you most likely remember a few other times when we had such things in the software development ecosystem. when we had a new technology that fundamentally changed the way we work. We got internet, we got Stack Overflow, we got visual development tools, we got local servers, we got a lot of things that basically made our job way easier. And since I'm old enough to know when developing JavaScript didn't have a console or developer tools, we had to install a lot of weird extensions and things to actually debug JavaScript. And that is now considered normal. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So, let's go onward to the future. So, the talk will be about the hype, mostly, in software development, and why we need to keep kind of a level-headed perspective. Because a lot of things are happening. A lot of extremely exciting things are happening. What will be their impact? In most cases, we really have no idea what will be their impact. But that's the same as it always was. We had no idea what the internet was for until recently, to be honest. This is not a talk that will diss on AI, but it will diss on a thoughtless AI adoption. Because just because we want to use AI, we should use AI. And I will try to show that the AI revolution, it is a revolution, but it is yet another cycle in the software development. So from the very first thing that software development did as an industry, starting from the 50s, is try to automate software developers. And that thing hasn't changed before I started my career and also since. So, what is the promise of AI? Is the promise basically of autocomplete development. Again, when I started developing, autocomplete was not really a thing. And when it started getting included in a lot of software packages, it was very exciting. I didn't need to type everything I needed. I can just type a few letters and the computer will fill the rest for me. That was great and that was awesome and that increased my development speed by a lot. So now we have the next stage. We have, instead of code completion, we're moving to dot completion. We just specify what we need to do, and then the computer will write the code for me. That's great. But here we need to be aware that there is a hidden cost. That when they are completing our dots, we are not sure whether they are completing the correct dots. Because it's quite easy to move from copy-paste programming to copy-paste architecture, copy-paste systems. So we're moving the level of the possible errors that we can do. Still, we are aware that there are some critical areas in our software development cycle when there is a need for specific human judgment. Mostly in the sense of context, because people understand all of the implicit context there is. Good people, quality people. On the other hand, there have been, I won't show any numbers or any use cases in this thing, but most of what I'm saying is backed by specific examples and specific numbers. If you want to question me about any of those, I will be here all day. So we have, for example, the security problem. Security is mostly code, but unlike, the report printing feature, it's a bit more complex, because if a reporting printing feature doesn't work or has some bugs, somebody will get their report a day late, or a number might be off or something like that. If security is compromised, we have bigger problems. We're leaking data, we're inviting hackers, and so on. So that part is not the same level of importance as the rest of the system. And humans have, especially security professionals, like the guy that will talk after me, they have a feeling that this is way more important than what the rest of the system does. Specifically, an error here can cost exponentially more. So that is a place where we actually need human judgment to say that this works. Yes, we can get all the helps we can by the AI, but the problem is AI does have agents, but I would debate whether those agents have agency, because in my mind, agency is also connected with the concept of agenda. What is the goal of the LLM? What is the goal of the agent? They don't really care if our security is compromised or not. I do. So, in the same sense, I care about the architecture of the system, because errors in that space, especially on the start of the project, will have exponentially higher costs later down the line. So not all code that I write is going to be equally important. Not all code that I write will be equally impactful on the lives of other software developers, for example. So there are some places when I need to put in extra effort. And then I might have some UI where I don't really care about that. So that is something that is still way missing from the AI revolution, because when it does a task, it considers that task as the most important thing that it does. And the quality will be, it doesn't matter if it's high or low, it's going to be consistent throughout. As humans, we don't want to do that, and we don't do that. Also, one thing that is often happens, to be honest, who here has been debugging quite a lot? Yeah, everybody. And in order to debug a system, as they say, it's solving a crime when you are both the murderer and the investigator. So it needs understanding what we're doing. It needs a lot of time, deep understanding of what's happening. If we don't have that understanding, we're not going to be able to do it. And AI is still just an advanced pattern matching thing. So it will not see what the problem is a lot of the times. It will find a lot of problems, but not the one that we're looking for. And last but not least in this thing, legal compliance. And here I will go back to the agency. Can an LLM go to jail? No. It's a machine. Can we go to jail if we push some code that suddenly exposes some people's health data and then we are sued into oblivion or something like that? Yes. So that is one other area when we need to be extra careful. And again, AI doesn't care whether that part is legally compliant or not. It just works. So I mentioned as one of the tools that we as developers did, the Stack Overflow page. Who has used Stack Overflow? Of course, everybody. Who has used Stack Overflow recently? In the last week? Yeah, very few people. Yeah, I have the achievement on Stack Overflow that I logged in for 365 days without missing it, because, as I said, my job is programming and my hobby is also programming, so it turned out that I used it literally every day for a while. And last time when I went to Stack Overflow, it said, oh, you need to log in. My refresh token ran out, so I didn't use it for at least 30 days or something like that. Why? Because right now I'm kind of using LLM for the same thing. But one issue with Stack Overflow was that what was the difference between the good and the bad developers? The bad developers are copying from the question, the good developers are copying from the solution. So, right now, with LLMs, we're getting to the point when instead of copying just snippets of code, we're copying. And to be honest, LLMs are not really generating a lot of code. They're generating a lot of amalgamation of other people's code. That code that was generated is not really unique. It's something that they've already seen, something that they've already know that it works. So basically, we're copy-pasting our whole solution. We can do that. Which means that there was a lot of talk about older developers that sites like Stack Overflow are kinda driving down the level of competence of people. And that talk is way more pronounced now with LLMs, because we kind of lose a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people are losing the deep understanding of what they are doing and how they are doing it. They just know that when they get an error message, they can paste that error message into an LLM, and the LLM will say, well, I fixed it. Don't worry about it, it's fixed. Now you get another error message, but that's beside the point. So instead of just knowing how to code, we will get a lot of people that know how to prompt. But I would definitely argue that in order to do a lot of things, you will actually need better understanding, because we will get to a point when a lot of developers will have skill atrophy. But is this a real concern? Who here knows to write assembler? Very, very few people. Yeah, and most of you are geeks and old. Yeah. Most younger people, are there any .NET developers? Yeah, a lot. How many of you can read intermediate language? I'm not asking about writing intermediate language, just reading it. So we always write C#, and then when we want to compile it, we know that it gets compiled into intermediate language, but we don't have the skills because we don't need those skills. Yeah, there are freaks that like going into the IL code, but most of us will never need it, don't use that skill. So do I have skill atrophy because I don't know IL? Not really. Do I have skill atrophy because I don't know assembler? I have no idea what architecture this processor has or how an M1 processor works. It works well. Yes, somebody will need to know that, but not me. And I am a software developer, and there are a lot of skills that I don't have, and I don't feel that I need or lack. But on the other hand, one thing that is always common in all software development is problem-solving abilities. Because one way to look at a developer is someone that solves problems with technology. That's what we're doing. It doesn't matter who reads the code, who writes the code. It matters that the problem gets solved by using some technology. So if those skills start atrophying, then yes, we will have a problem. On the other hand, if the skill of writing JavaScript or writing C# kind of atrophies, but we're not really using it, who cares? We can use the LLM about that. So what is important is that the problem-solving abilities, if those start atrophying because of AI, then we kind of have a problem. Otherwise, I'm quite okay with not knowing things. So, in essence, that was all the problems that we had with AIs. How do we solve them? So, we're going to need to be conscious about how we build our skill set in the age of AI. So, it will be a bit of a, it's not going to be an epiphany moment, but it should be something that's organic to us, something that we work on ourselves to make us better as software developers, as somebody who solves problems with technology. We need to have AI-resistant development skills. We need to provide value that the AI does not provide. And that goes into deep understanding of what we want to do. Yes, we're going to write a prompt, but one thing that I definitely saw, that the people who know more, people who have deep understanding of what they're doing and why, usually they get much better answers from the AI. A beginner will prompt it with something generic, something casual, and they will fall into a pit or a trap or something like that, that's kind of obvious to the older guy because he spent a week last year battling that. So they will, maybe without even thinking, mention that in the prompt, and the AI will just move past that. So I've literally seen that the better you are at programming yourself, the better your AI answers are. Because maybe without even being aware of that, you will be a better prompt engineer or whatever that is. Because you know the problems before they arise. You don't need to go through an iteration because you've already been there. You already felt that. And in order to do that, we need to understand what we're doing. Yeah. As I mentioned, LLMs are just fancy pattern matching machines on steroids. So we need to take care of the systems thinking. We can use any kind of tools to help us with that, to basically augment our behavior and our thinking, but the systems thinking is still left for us. All the decisions that we make are decisions that we make, and we should use AI to help us make those decisions. But again, nobody is going to beat up AI because they made the wrong decisions. All the decisions are our decisions. One other thing is that is connected with the previous two, is that we should be able to debug our own solution. We should be able to see what went wrong. And by debugging, I don't mean that we need to set a breakpoint and inspect variables. Those are the mechanics of debugging. I'm thinking about thinking through a problem. This is what happens in the system. This is how the system behaves because of this, and if these two things are correct, then we fuck up. So that is the way that we need to be able to think about the system that we are building. And if we have that knowledge, if we have that thinking inside of us, then again, the development will be faster, everything will be okay, and we will be the guy that solves problems with AI and not the guy that makes problems with AI. And of course, we will need to, when we get a solution, when we get a response back, when we get some architecture or security advice or whatever, we should be able to understand what the model did. Yeah, I'm going to use the model to generate it because I don't want to write yet another validation method. But we should be able to understand what it did and why it did it. And then to say, no, you did this wrong, redo it. So the correct way, according to me, once more, this is all subjective. I might be talking bullshit here. The correct way to use AI tools, according to me. One of the most popular tools is used Copilot. And I love that name. Because it's a co-pilot. It's decisive who flies the plane, who is responsible for whatever the plane does and wherever the plane goes. Yeah, I have a copilot that will help me do those things, but I am in charge for now. So AI is an assistant. It's not a replacement for me. So I will need to have some kind of verification strategies and review processes that will help me weed out the good things that I want to keep and throw away the bad things that I don't want to keep, that I want to redo, of course, using LLMs. And we have to have the human oversight throughout. We've all heard the stories, and I do have some references of somebody that fired all the developers, built a product, it was working for a week, and then went to hell. So that is on us. As not only as developers, as startup founders, as product owners, doesn't really matter. If we're working with software as a product, we need to be aware of this. Without this, it's not going to work. So, in essence, AI is a revolution, just like all the other revolutions that we had in the software development world. Software development now is not the software development on 10 years ago, but the software development of 10 years ago was not the software development of 20 years ago. So software development, by definition, we are constantly trying to automate ourselves. This is not the first time this happened. The first time that happened was 50, okay, now it's 70 years ago. Yeah. I don't know, 1980 was a few years ago. And to be honest, the music in the 90s was better than the music now, and I'm willing to die on that hill, even if I'm showing my age. Yeah. So, software development is a special, yeah, I'm biased, but software development is a special industry when we're constantly trying to reinvent ourselves, and that is the nature of the industry. If you don't like that, you're in the wrong job. I love it personally, but I have to internalize that it's gonna change, it's gonna be different. And if I don't update my skills for the current environment, it's not gonna work. But some things, on the other hand, are constant. The guys that have a deep understanding of what they are doing and what they are doing, why they are doing it, are better. So we need to focus not only on the superficial things. This is the technology we are using. Why are we using it? How are we using it? How it's going to be better? Because then, a lot of the times, the future kind of becomes obvious. It will go in that direction or something like that. So we will need to develop new skills, mostly in using AIs, mostly in using, for example, tools like LangFlow that was shown before me, to basically make a network out of agents. But you know what? That's programming. A lot of the people, we kind of feel that now everybody could do this. Yes, just like everybody could do COBOL, just like everybody could do Visual Basic, just like everybody could do HTML. And right now we're counting those. No, those are tools that only developers do. The thing is, not a lot of people want to solve problems with technology. They want to use the solutions, but only a subset of people want to solve problems with technology. And we're calling those people developers. Whether the tool they are using is assembler or COBOL or C# or LLM, doesn't really matter. Most of the people won't be building complicated flows to automate their calendars. Most of the people will use those kind of tools once they're built, and they might pay money for that. Money is good. But most of the people won't automate their own flows because that is complicated. So we're lessening the level of complication. To be honest, I will definitely say that COBOL is more complicated than using an LLM, but the feeling is still here. Developers are detail managers, problem solvers. So we will still have a point of existence why developers need to exist, even in the next decade, even in the next, I would say, half a century. After that, I'll be dead, so I don't care. So what we need to do is we need to focus on our craft, what we want to do. Because software development is an engineering discipline and is a craft discipline. So we need to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that's about all the time I had and all the things I wanted to really say. Again, of course, this presentation was mostly generated by code. So I don't think it will be, if you have some questions, we can talk about them now or we can talk about them later. I hope I gave you some food for thought. This was basically old man's run things, but I've seen enough things in my career that this is nothing new. This is yet another cycle.